Welcome back into another episode of Infamously Speaking. I'm Matt. That's Quan. We're back. Quan's feeling like a champ. Feeling like the Undertaker, revived from the dead, back from the sickness, rocking the UConn Huskies, who are doing big things in the NCAA tournament as of right now. 99, yes, sir. That's what we do in Connecticut. Anyways, if you're not already subscribed to the Infamously Speaking YouTube channel, go ahead, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure that you are tapped in, following, whatever that looks like there, so you do not miss a show. Also, social media, be sure that you're following Infamously Speaking there. At Infamously Speaking on TikTok, Instagram. We'd love your engagement. We'd love to chop it up. The back and forth really keeps us going, really keeps us motivated. You drop fire commentary there, it might even make the show. So be sure to be tapped in all the spaces where Infamously Speaking is. You will not regret it. All right. Got to turn it over to you, my guy. Glad to see that you're doing well. Clearly, you got the energy. How you feeling?
I'm feeling like Undertaker. I feel great. I feel like I'm rising from the dead. You don't know?
Mm-mm.
No, I do. I feel like I was going through it. I was struggling. And I'm back. You know, it's kind of ironic because the day he is risen is right around the corner. Now, I am not comparing myself. I am not comparing myself to Jesus.
Coming out swinging.
Yeah, I did come out swinging. And I know I'm going to take a lot of heat for the way I was throwing punches, but I was just, playfully throwing jabs out there like I usually do at my co-host. Speaking of which, what you guys don't know is that for an hour and a half, we've been trying to fix these AirPods to get sound because I could barely hear Matt. And speaking about Jesus, right? I think it was God giving me signs because I've been asking him to tune out the nonsense. And therefore, Matt was on mute for about an hour and a half. Second of all, I feel like my patience been thin lately. So I think that was a lesson of him teaching me I need to have more patience once again. So we're here. We took the lesson. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to talk sports. It's March Madness, as Matt said, 1999 UConn. Khalid El-Amin led the way with Rip Hamilton. Connecticut champs, man.
You know, a couple of things I want to say there. First, I love the lesson. I think another word you could throw in there during the delay is discipline, right? I took discipline because I easily just been like, you know what, let's just try another day, right? How easy is it to do that? You know, we tried, but things just didn't work out. Second, I think, I'm not sure if you've been seeing it because it is tourney time again, right? All the posts, the sports outlets, right? They always do this on social media, like what all-time college team is winning. And so you see, like, of course, Duke, North Carolina, Kentucky, right? All the blue bloods. But I was talking about this with my barber last week, and he was like, all-time college teams, who do you think would win? And I was like, obviously, UNC, Duke, Kentucky, they get a lot of the top tier talent. But a lot of those players are one and done. Where UConn, a lot of those guys stay 3-4 years. UConn doesn't have a lot of one and done products. And that's why they win so many national championships. Because we talk about all the time, is cohesiveness and teamwork typically beat out talent in pressure situations, especially in the tournament time. Because these guys have been playing together for so long that they know what each guy's going to do in crunch time. It's not a surprise where some of these guys who are true freshmen might not have that same connection. I'm curious what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to a lot of things we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, where you build a team who understands each other, right? And the chemistry. Just to tie into Call of Duty, just because that's a team game when we was playing Hardcore Search and Destroy, I knew your tendencies, right?
Like Call of Duty is where he goes.
I'm just saying, let's make it relatable to some of our listeners. I know there's a lot of Call of Duty players out there, or ex-Call of Duty players. But no, I did tie it into Call of Duty. I know it's not so intense or like, it is what it is. Don't throw me off track. In Call of Duty, I understood my teammates' tendencies. I knew which way Sam was going to go. I knew which way you were gonna go. I knew which way Raph was gonna go. I knew Tone wasn't really gonna move anywhere. It was one of those things. So it told me two things. One is if you didn't die, I know where you're advancing, where I can meet you at the map to get to the flag or the bomb, whatever it may be.
Mhm.
And vice versa. If I see that you was taken out, I know there's someone on that side or in that part of the map.
Yeah.
So that being with because I knew the tendency so much, I'm running and flying around the map with ease. It's almost like having a UAV up without a UAV because I know what the chemistry is and understanding where you're gonna be at certain times, right? So
Yep.
just tied into the game of sports, I think anytime you have that chemistry, you just naturally are cohesive where you're building not only the chemistry part, but the longevity, right? When you have
Yes.
longevity with a specific group, I feel like it's easier to face those moments because naturally you probably been there with them already, right? Um, for example, I'm sure there's times that we lost, not many, but when we did, we learned from those experiences and how we would maneuver through them if a situation like that comes up differently, right? And it'd be in the moment a lot of times in the game because they run it back. You have a few different rounds.
Yep.
Um, and it's similar to March Madness. You know, you don't get another shot if you lose in the tournament, but you do if you have that same team going into it next year.
Yeah. 100%. I love the call outs. And another thing I add too is that when you play with the same group, that sounded crazy, but when you're around the same group and you build with the same group, better word there, for a longer period of time, everybody starts to learn their role. Right. So like taking it back to Call of Duty, I knew what my job was. I'm playing the bomb. You know what I mean? That was the goal. That was the goal. And that was that, right? But I knew my role. And there was always people, right? There was people like you or whoever else was playing behind that would try to spot people up. All right, we know exactly what map we're gonna go on. All right, no, I don't see nobody there. I don't see nobody there. All right, and by doing that, then we know that they must be there because we know all this. You know all the spots, right? But again, everybody knows their role, and even on a team, right? You talk about basketball team when you have a bunch of guys in college or even women's basketball. What people sometimes forget is that to make it to a high level collegiate program, you were the shit in high school. And so you have a bunch of people that were them in high school. Like they were him at their program or in their state, or her in their program or in their state. And now they're all coming together on a single team. And it's similar when
Mhm.
you go to the pros, right? People who make it from the pros from college were usually effective, really good players in college. And now they got to learn a different role to maintain that longevity in the pros. And so I think that's why, you don't see Duke winning, the title every year, or Kentucky when they had all the players, right? Or Kansas, because they don't have all that. They might win a bunch of games in the regular season, but you don't see that sustained success through the tournament. And they end up losing to teams typically that have more tenure. I think that's why Villanova, remember they had their stretch
Mhm.
when they were so good. A lot of those guys stood to their juniors, seniors in college. Same thing with UConn, right? Alex Carabin's been killing it for us, but like he's a senior, so he's been there all 4 years.
Yeah, really good point. Shout out to my guy Bug. We was watching the state championship game with Windsor. I forgot who they were playing. I can't pronounce their name. I've never even seen them before. And they got smoked. They got blown out by over 20.
Jeez.
Um, and Bug was telling me, like, that guy, he's a sophomore, he's a freshman.
Oh, they're young.
And they're young, right? So to be that talented, but also like of that chemistry at that age, knowing that they still have 2 or 3 years left together, is spooky because in time it's gonna evolve, right, and get better.
Right.
And especially when it comes to basketball, like you start understanding where people's spots are, right? If Matt is a corner specialist, when you drive, he's gonna be in that corner.
Right.
If you're shout out to my guy Ray. Ray was terrible at layups. So I know he's not cutting to the basket because he don't even want to do the layup, knowing he's gonna miss it. But I know I'll find him near the half court line if I gotta, throw an outlet pass to save myself. So really,
right?
Building on that, you understand where people's spots are, which obviously helps you in the game because you know where you can expect them to be.
Absolutely. And I'll even take it to, to another sport. I think this is why we don't see some of the dynasties like we do anymore. Like if you think about the great Patriot teams in football, they had so much continuity. Obviously with Tom, but big
Mm,
free agents normally didn't leave New England, right? They didn't come in a lot, but they didn't leave New England that much either. It was a lot of the same core.
mhm.
And I forget what the term is. Even in professional work, there's a term for it that every time you switch up members of a team, there's going to be a natural decline in performance because everybody's starting to kind of getting to learn their role. Yes, they might be doing the same job, but their function on that team looks a little bit different, even though it's the same exact job. In football, it might be, yeah, I'm still playing right guard, but the audibles are different. The different blocking teams might be a little bit different than when I came from. So there's that time where you're still learning everything. And then to your point, you're learning what the guy next to you is doing as well, because that's how effective teams work. They just don't know their
Yes.
role. They know the roles of everybody else and how their own personal role interacts with that. And so I'm curious because I know that you've gone through a lot of like changes with team members as a leader is how do you work to get everybody up to speed quickly so that drop off is as low as possible or as small as possible?
In the works, I mean, just to let me start with the sports because you made a good
Mhm.
call out, right? So as a starting quarterback when I played, I had to know all the positions, right?
Right.
I had to know which way they were gonna block. I had to know which route my wide receivers were running, where the running back could pick up the block. And if I didn't know that, that was gonna be a problem, obviously, because, you know, he's running an out route, I'm thinking he's running a post, I'm just gonna throw it because really you should be like the best quarterbacks I feel is like timing wise, right? You're not just looking to see if he's open, you're throwing him open. So you got to understand how that goes. And then, God forbid somebody gets injured, their backup should know those routes. But if not, I got to be the guy like, hey, go here. This is your route, or cut here. This is what tends to work. It's almost like it reminds me of that clip of Tom yelling at Gronk. You remember that clip where he's like, Gronk, get on the line. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So understanding like you gotta know where your people are supposed to be so you can put them in place if they're not. So now I relate that to the work environment where we all know our roles, right? We know our strengths, we have our opportunities and how we're gonna work on them. If the team member comes in, it's my role, my job and responsibility to fill them in on what strengths this person has, what opportunities they have, but also uncover what strengths and opportunities the new team members are coming in with. So that
Mhm.
way we're all supportive of one another. And once you do that, I think it's fairly easy because it's gonna be cohesive on how, oh, if this is your opportunity, well, this is their strength. Let's leverage that so that the support is there not just for myself, but your team members, which
Right.
ultimately builds trust and helps in those partnerships for sure.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a great call out. And the reason I want to bring it up because we were talking a little bit about sports. We talked about obviously it's March Madness, right? But the big overarching topic in all of college athletics has been and will be for a long time is NIL, right? The college players getting paid for their name, image, and likeness. And so I was having a discussion with somebody at work about this, and the reason it came up is because I'm not sure if you saw, like, Tom Brady did something a while back where he's talking about his time at Michigan and how staying at Michigan for his entire collegiate career really set him up to be successful in the pros, even though he had to deal with a lot of not playing, getting benched, all kinds of stuff, right? And now there's a lot of movement, and some players don't move because the pay they're getting already, but some people would like to be loyal, right? Especially back in the day, that was a thing. We saw way more lifers at places, and now we don't. Do you think that with the landscape and how things are in sports that A, loyalty is to a situation, to a team is a bad idea? After we just talked about the benefit of kind of keeping a group together, do you think certain teams are going to try to stick together more often to build those dynasty runs like we saw with the Patriots and just recently the Chiefs? What do you think the kind of the trend is going, and do you think one way or the other is smarter?
I think the trend is gonna continue to go where the money is. What's smart, I think I'm not in that position necessarily, right? But I think what's smart is what you're doing is what's best for you. Sometimes though, I don't think it depends what you want, right? I'll give you an example. I'll give you a couple of examples actually. When Tom was always taking less money, to me, I thought that was smart because his legacy is being cemented clearly, right? There's very few that don't believe he's the GOAT at this point, what he was able to accomplish and achieve. But at the same time, the money comes with that because, I mean, he just got paid. What was his deal for Fox? It was insane.
It must like 20 million, 30 million a year, something like that.
So, would he have gotten that if he didn't have the success he had? Probably not, if I'm being real. So, you give and you take. So at that point, he was
Mm,
giving because he wasn't taking a lot of the money, but it came back times 10 in my opinion because he's got a big contract now commentating and his legacy is cemented. Like he's the
right.
GOAT, right? So but at the same time now, just to tie it into the NIL and all that, it's evolved. And we talk about it all the time, like we have to evolve. It's just evolution is part of life. So
Right.
now that the opportunity is out there and there's a young man or woman who's got the option to, make more money for themselves and their families, I don't hate that. I remember years ago when we talked about it before this even was a thing, like should athletes get paid, right? Zion
Mm,
potentially could have got injured and now he's
yep.
not able to take care of his family. He's this talented young man. I think there's pros and cons to everything. I don't mind it. It's part of the evolution. It's wild, right? Being from New London, that was a thing, right? It was like you wanted to represent your hometown, but there's so many people from New London or young kids who they're playing on different cities' teams, right? Just
Yep.
whether they're following a coach or whatever the case may be, maybe the opportunities they have more play time, and I don't fault them for that. It's just to me, it's not common to see. And I'm thinking about it, right? All the talent that New London specifically had they all been on one team and they played together for their 4 years, I'm sure they would have had another banner just because of the talent that's there and how it was spread across a lot of winning teams. But overall, like I don't knock them. Whatever's best for them and their families, I'll support all day. I did see
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. No, good.
I
Yeah.
apologize. I did see something though, and I'll just tie this in. And I'll let you speak your piece. But it was a grid, right? It was a grid of LeBron, KD, someone else, and Steph. And each grid, it showed, for example, it had LeBron, and it had LeBron in the Cavs jersey, the Lakers jersey, the Heat jersey, Durant, and all James. It was James Harden,
Right.
and it just had Steph just in the Golden State. And it's like, how do you say he's not the best player in that generation if he didn't even have to switch teams and he has so much success?
Yeah. Well, I mean, some people would be like, well, because KD went to him. Now they were already cooking. They were 7-3-9. Now listen, I'm not a hater of that. I mean, we watched a lot of those games together, and we was like, it would only worked because Steph is the player that he is, and KD's the player that he is. That's the only reason why it worked. If Steph wasn't able to get his without the ball, then that doesn't work. So he's one of the best off ball guards of all time, if not the best off ball guard of all time. Just his ability to we talked about it on a bunch of episodes. The gravity that he has on the court when he doesn't have the ball is crazy. What I was gonna say is, you talked about the potential of like if all those kids that ended up playing for New London and didn't go play for other towns, cities, or whatever, where there was opportunity. I think it's always so interesting. It's like, how do you know if that would have meshed? We don't know, obviously. We're just going off what their talent is. But are some guys willing to sacrifice? To your point, on those other teams, maybe they could be the first or second option. But if they all stood in the NL, maybe one of those guys is the first option is like, hey, we want you to come off the bench. And that's a vital role. I mean, I think about guys like J.R. Smith, Jamal Crawford, Lou Will. massive pieces off the bench, but
nasty
not
too.
but not everybody's built for that. Not everybody wants that to be their role, especially if you have aspirations to take the game, further than high school. So that was one thing I was thinking about. But then on the flip side of that coin too, I always think about the way that I would hope I'd look at it, at least the way I look at it now, is that if I'm sitting behind somebody because the coach feels like that person is better, why? What do they do better than me? Especially if I have the talent to be a one on another team, why can't I be a one on this team? What are they doing? Like we talked about it a couple episodes ago, right? When somebody else is getting their flowers, what are they or to get the promotion? What are they doing to do that? And am I doing those same things? If I want to be the one, am I putting in the work of a one? Because sometimes the easier situation is to go somewhere else where there's less talent, where they have to make you the one. But are you developing the same way if you're not being challenged that way? You get what I'm
Mm.
saying?
Mhm.
So,
No, that's
like,
a
I'm
great
kinda torn on both
that's a
sides of
great
that.
point. That's a great point. It's like, the just a personal experience. I remember and I felt like I could be a starter, right? I knew my potential, but I also knew that I didn't always showcase that. There's been times where I was timid or I lacked some confidence. So I would usually come off the bench, usually sixth, seventh man, and
Mhm.
I'd bring that spark, whether it had to be defensively, even though I knew I could shoot and I could pass, I could facilitate. I didn't mind playing that role because I think it goes back to something we spoke about last episode, where what's more important, my personal accolade or the chip, right? That team win. Um, and some people don't have that buy-in. I think that comes to grips with how either they were raised or how they were coached or what their mindset is. And again, shout out to Kareem because I know he's big on people knowing their roles and playing their their position. And I know that playing with him, um, outside in the parks, and he would always find me on the wing, shoot my little mid range, and I was gonna knock it down. It's just part of the game, and I didn't mind playing that role as long as we won. I want to stay on the court. I'm not trying to sit and wait. You know what I mean? And some players can buy in, some players can't. I think that's just a mindset you got to have, or at least develop. Like, what's more important to you? And everybody wants to be the guy or be the girl, right? They want to be them or him or her, but
Right.
sometimes there's just people who work harder, and some people who are just a little bit more talented. It just is what it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's the ultimate combination, right? Talent plus hard work. But we all know, like, if you can only have one, hard work's gonna help you elevate above anybody that's talented enough. I mean, even Kobe said it, right? I mean, you putting up thousands of shots in the gym before everybody wakes up. That's not talent. That's just dedication to your craft.
Hmm.
Obviously, he was physically talented, but when the pressure situations came down, he was cold blooded because of the
Hmm.
fact that he had all the experience.
Wow.
But I love that you called out that role player, right? Because I agree with you. I think that not everybody wants to be that, but I think it's because we don't we look at sports and like that, and we look at certain players, and I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head where like he's a role player. For example, he shined in the finals last year, TJ McConnell, right?
Mm,
And his role was to come off the bench, be fiery, tons of energy, attack the
mm,
guard on offense, be a pest on defense, and he was phenomenal at it. And it was great that he was getting his light, his shine, because you can see that, hey, there's a path. You don't have to be the Tyrese Halliburton or the SGA. You could be just as valuable getting minutes in game 7 of the finals. Obviously, he was getting burned throughout the entire finals before Tyrese got hurt just by being really good at what your role is, to your
hmm.
point, the spot up shooter. If that's what you are, then that's what you are. And that's completely okay. I just think it's also about how the team internally lifts that person up too. How do you make sure that that person knows that they're just as value as the person that is facilitating the whole thing?
Damn, you just reminded me of something, and that was a great analogy too. Shout out to Kareem again. There was a young man. I apologize, I don't remember his name, but a young Filipino kid, and he wasn't the star player. I'm not even sure if he starts, but he had some key defensive moments in the ECC tournament, and in another game I watched where he came up with a big steal to kinda, like, seal the game, and the team uplifted him, they all surrounded him, obviously, big steal at the end of the game to kinda, like, solidify that victory, but it seems to me like he knew his role, right? Like, Kareem helped him understand his role was to be a defensive stopper and put pressure when it was necessary or when it was needed, and, when you have moments like that, I think that helps, right? It's kind of going back into how you're coached and how you gain that buy-in of it's okay to not have 25 points and 10 rebounds, right? You can have 6 points, 8 points, make some key buckets, and play great defense. Like, you know, Rodman's a great example. He's not getting buckets, but he was needed and necessary in a lot of those games when they won that championship.
Yeah, I mean, look at Steve Kerr just being ready for the moment when his number was called, right? In that finals game. But I think that kind of shines a light on kind of what the culture is. I mean, this is not just in sports. We talk about sports because it's so relatable and because I mean you always hear like sports reflects life and it's so true. Is that we kind of have like a highlight culture problem where people see the wins, not the work. People see the accolades again, but not what goes behind in it. And so that's why, we uplift or we focus on the guy that drops, 30 points, but maybe not so much on the guy that makes the key defensive play,
Mm.
right? That might take a charge that kind of stems the momentum of a team coming back or flips it the other way, or like you said, making a key steal in the game. And so as a team leader, I'm curious as to how do you highlight the people that necessarily aren't putting up the big numbers, but that that is making an impact, whether it's in driving the culture the right way or helping other people get theirs?
To me, it's it's easy. Just recognize him for it. I'll give you an example. Stephon Diggs. Like we talked highly of him. I know I specifically talked very highly of him on how he was contributing just as a captain on that team and a veteran voice. He didn't necessarily always make big plays. He had some big games, don't get me wrong, but calling that out like a Vrabel, making sure that he recognizes everybody as they come into the tunnel. I'm sure he's still having conversations with all those individuals about what they're doing that's helping that team win and reach success. So yeah, I think just recognizing them when you see it, whether it's in the moment or after the fact, and be like, look, I really appreciate what you did, right? Your contributions aren't going unnoticed and they're making a difference. To me, I
Right.
feel it's that simple. It's funny, real quick though, because I don't want to lose this train of thought. Because we talk about the highlights, right? We talk about
Mhm.
wanting to be, I don't know, recognized for whatever. I feel like for those who don't know, like the more you can just start appreciating the work and stuff you're doing for yourself, you'll
Mm,
realize you don't need that validation.
yes. Yes.
You know what I mean? Like once you
Love
realize
it.
that you can appreciate the work that you're putting in, the validation will come. But even if a validation comes, do you need that to feel like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing?
I love that, bro. I love that you said that. Damn, this guy is good. I was gonna say something else, but fuck what I was about to say because I was fire. I love that because it's crazy. My pastor's been preaching on this for a couple weeks now, and he said it a couple times over the course of maybe 2 to 3 weeks now, where he's like, "You gotta love yourself before you could love others properly." And the reason for that is kind of what you was just talking about right there. Is the fact of being able to just to be grateful for what you're doing in the moment. To be like, you know what? Yeah, I did accomplish that. I did do that. Not to be prideful, but kind of talk about what we talk about. At the end of the day, you could sleep easy knowing that you did that, right?
Mhm,
That you were able to show the right amount of discipline to do the things that you needed to be able to do. That you still got your 100, 100, 200, 300 shots up in the gym, that you ran the couple miles that you wanted to run, that you
mhm,
lifted the weights that you wanted to lift, right? You did what you had to do. You took care of yourself. It took a level of discipline to do that.
mhm,
And so it doesn't matter if other people aren't validating what you've done, you know what
mhm,
you've done, right? And in doing that, showing that level of discipline, saying, I'm going to go after this and you're going to do it because you know it's going to better yourself. You're showing that A, that you love yourself, and now to your point, it's gonna be real easy to recognize when other people are doing it because you
Mhm.
know the work that it takes. You see that person, up at 6 AM jogging down the road or at the gym. You see them struggling, as they're opening the door kinda with a little bit of a limp. You could tell that they're still sore from the day before, but yep, they're still there. They're still
Mhm.
at the gym, and you know that feeling, so you're like, "Wow, shout out to you because I know exactly what you're feeling." 'Cause I'm feeling that same shit right now.
Yeah. You know what's funny is like the fitness journey that I went on, that I'm still on, excuse me. There was an older gentleman, out of shape, um, but he was there and he was going hard, and I was like, "Yo, good shit," and I just kept it moving, right? I don't know how that affected him. I don't know if it was positive. I highly doubt it was negative, but I wanted to do that because I was in his shoes, right? Where it's like, yo, I'm going hard. I'm not in the shape I want to be in, but I'm working on it. And just to tie it into what you were saying, although I reached my goal, right? As far as the weight I wanted to attain, the biggest takeaway is the fact that I had the discipline to continue that journey. Even now, right? I don't have the best days, but I still have the discipline of like, I'm dedicated to what I want to accomplish. And knowing I can do that because there was a time where I didn't feel like I can be dedicated or disciplined to make the right decisions and continue at the pace I was at. So knowing that I can do that now, for example, excuse me, like eating wise, right? I know I have the discipline to fast. I would have never thought I could do that. But now I know I can do it for a good amount of time and be good. And I think that because I have that discipline, I know I could turn it on if I need to. It's just, you know, if that's what my goal is in the moment.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, bro. I mean, I think it really goes to, again, shout out you for doing that. But again, like recognizing the fact that when you know what the hard work is, A, it validates itself, and B, when you see it in others, it's validated because you've
Mhm,
been through the grind. I mean, we talk about it all the time, like with leaders, is like you respect the leader who did what you did before they were your leader, who did what you did. You know what I mean? Like
mhm,
the people that, I came up doing sales. I respected everybody. But the people who were giving me feedback who did sales before, my ear was a little bit more inclined to that feedback. I'm like, this person was in the trenches. This person did
mhm,
it before. And so I love that. And I think another thing too I wanted to kind of call out is, so I'm gonna ask you this first, and I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit. What was your motivation for that? And what is your motivation now? Before you started your fitness journey, what was the
mm.
motivation to get that right? And then you said you achieved your goal. What's your motivation now? If it's changed.
My motivation at the time was to survive. If I'm being real, like I felt like I was on my way out. I think I might have mentioned that on the show. I know I definitely mentioned it to people that was
Mhm.
around me. Like I felt like if I didn't make these changes, my lifespan was gonna be cut short. So I felt like it was necessary. So it kind of made it easy, right, for the motivation part in my mindset because I'm not trying to go out just yet.
Right.
My motivation now is just to continue to get better. Like I still have goals, right? I just created another goal. Like I want to start putting on more muscle because I lost muscle with losing so much weight and not really working out with weights. But not just for myself. Like a lot of my motivation is understanding how it impacts Nove because Nova is in the gym daily. Like you might have seen
Love
it. Like
that.
I be in the gym with Nova at times, and understanding how her seeing me go to the gym after working or having a hard day and tired and still pushing myself, and then seeing her do it is motivation within itself. So like
Mhm.
that's obviously another big motivation for me is understanding how the sacrifices and choices I make ultimately affects her as well.
No, I love that, bro. I love that. And I think it's really important to understand the motivation because it keeps you grounded. Like I was having a conversation at work. I have a new leader in place, and one of the questions was like, "What motivates you?" Like, what's your why? And we talked about a lot on the show. Your why helps you stay grounded, especially when things are tough, because you have a reason that you could fall back on, you could look to motivate yourself, to help you to keep going. And I really thought about it. And for me, absolutely having children is a great motivator. If you're a decent human being, your kids are gonna motivate you because you know that they depend on what you're doing. They look to you. You're an example for them. I try to boil it down to its simplest form, and I was like, you know what? I heard something when I was younger, and it was the best way that you could show your gratitude is by the way that you show up. And that
Mm,
stuck with me for a long time. Still sticks with me right now. I heard that in church. Um, that's the best way is the way that you show up, the way that you act, the way that you live. And so for me, whenever I want to do something, like you said, I want the work to speak for itself. Obviously, I'm going to tell people I appreciate them, but for the people that have helped me out, poured into me, took time to mentor me, speak to me, whatever it is let my body of work show you that I'm grateful, that I didn't waste the time or the resources that you poured
mm.
into me. And so that's the way that I like to show up every day is just with gratitude. People say attitude of gratitude. Is for me, it's a lifestyle. It's for my parents, to my other family members, of course, now my wife and my children, to you, to my mentors, to my peers. Is listen. There's a lot of people that could be in my spot right now. There's
Mhm.
nothing really special about Matt Rose as far as the skills that I have, right? But what's special about me is how I carry myself.
No, that's
And
facts. Very,
yeah.
very, very well said. Based off of what you said, it actually made me think of another part of my motivation. And we kind of referenced this a couple shows back where is we always talk about paying it forward. Part of my motivation is paying it backwards. So you know, shout out to my mom. I built a much better relationship with my mom in the last few months, right? And my mom, she wants to start losing weight and stuff and just getting in better shape and in better health. And it's not easy for her now that she's older and she had a lot of injuries, broken back and stuff. And I was like, Mom, look, let's just start with 10 minutes. 10 minutes, we'll walk around. 10 minutes will turn into 12 minutes. 12 minutes will turn into 15 minutes. 15 minutes will turn into 20 minutes. And we can go at a slow pace. It's not a rush, right? It's not a quick relay race. It's a marathon, right? It's a journey. And my mom appreciates my company a little bit more, I feel like. So, before we would ride motorcycles and do that for bonding. But now if we could take a walk and it's beneficial to both of us with the health, not even just the physical health, the mental health of rekindling and building that mom and son relationship is just as important. So my motivation is not just for my daughter, but also for my mom as well. But I want to tie that in because it's like how we show up, right? How am I going to show up for my mom in a way that I didn't? Like I just didn't do that. If I'm being real.
I love that because I, one thing that's big for me is, and I know you detailed your relationship with your mom on this show. And for those that haven't listened, I've encouraged you, go back and listen. How far back? I don't know. Maybe just start at the beginning. Do yourself a favor. I can't point to the exact episode. Just say you start at the beginning. But I love the fact that so many times we allow things that happened to us in the past to dictate how we move in the future. And so I think a lot of people view it as it was my parents' responsibility to build a good relationship with me. And what they did growing up hurt that relationship. S- And so if they wanted to mend it, it should be on my parent to mend it. They're the parent, right? They're supposed to be the adult in the situation. I'm not going to say that you're wrong in that fact, right? Like they were the person that was supposed to be responsible. But sometimes that's just not the case in life. People that were supposed to be there for you or do certain things don't do what they're supposed to do. And it's not because they don't want to do it. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times it's they don't know how. They
Hmm.
only know how to show up the way that they saw people that were in their position now show up. And
Correct.
so the problem is because we don't try to build those relationships, we don't have conversations like that to understand. why is this person this way? Sometimes we try, well, they just treat me like this because they don't like me, or that's just the kind of person they are, and they'll never be different. This is how they were when I was a kid, and this is how they were as an adult, and I'm gonna push them away. Not knowing that then you start to emulate those own behaviors by
Mhm.
yourself because it's just
Mhm.
what's natural to you, and you're blinded to that. So I love the fact that you were able to be like, you know what? I'm gonna seek out that relationship and try to heal that. And you talked about the same thing with your dad also. I'm gonna seek that out and try to fix that, right? And I'm sure that as you're doing that, it might have uncovered some things that you see in your own self to be like, dang, all right, yeah, right. And then hopefully, as you have a great relationship with your daughter, she gets to learn more about you too. Cause that helps heal that. That helps heal everybody involved,
Mhm.
you know?
It
So I love
definitely
that you're
helps.
doing that, bro.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'll be transparent. It's not easy, right? There's times where it's difficult, right? I'll have a disagreement with my mom or, you know, it's a challenge or maybe she doesn't feel up to, putting in the work. And I'll respect it, but I also give her feedback. Whether she takes it or not, that's ultimately my mom's decision. But I can sleep at night knowing I've tried, right? And I've provided information or resources that's going to help in that situation. But ultimately, I can say that I tried and I'm good with that. I think that I got a question for you. I actually just seen a video and it was a son who he was smacking his father around who was older, like way older, like an older gentleman. And it threw me off, and, I don't know the dynamics of that relationship. It was just a video that was out there on YouTube, and how do you feel about people who either hanging on, or what kind of advice can you give someone who's, like, hanging on to that resentment or that anger or frustration? And how do you deal with people who tend to always point the finger as
Mm.
opposed to, like, looking at themselves?
Yeah, I mean, to the first part, I mean, if I'm being completely honest with you, man, that's a tough one. My response to anybody like that be like, man, seek God. But I understand that not everybody believes in that. I'm gonna be honest with you, but
Yeah.
not everybody. That's not what everybody believes that, and I respect that. I can't force anybody to believe what I believe. But you're gonna have to seek some kind of external help, whatever that is. You're gonna need to you gotta seek counsel, whatever that looks like for you. Because obviously what you know or what you think you know at that point is not leading to success in that area of your life if you're still stuck in there. So the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting the outcome to be different. There needs to be something different in that formula. Whether that is your beliefs, whether that is seeking therapy, whatever that looks like, something needs to be different in that equation. So that's my answer to the first one. The second one would be, uh, again, a little bit of awareness. If everything is going wrong around you, it's not everything around you that's wrong. You got to look in the mirror, and something that I heard on Sunday, which was yesterday, was listen, whatever you're reaping, whatever you're getting in life, check what you're planting. Check the seed that you're sowing. You can't go out and expect to have a field of flowers if you planted a cactus.
Mhm.
It just doesn't happen. That won't work. So if you're not getting the outcome that you want, you got to look at the input. And that's why even, tying it back to even professional situations, before we go and we do anything, or even science, we all learned this in science class, right? What's the first thing that you do before you do an experiment in science class? You write a hypothesis of what you
I was
think is
gonna
going to
say
happen.
hypothesis. I was
Right.
gonna say
I know
that.
you're stumbling on the word. You're like, what's that word? But you write a hypothesis, and then what you have, right, is you have controls and you have variables. You have things that stay the same, and you typically have one thing that changes, so you can understand, hey, if I change this one thing, how does it impact the outcome? So that's what you have to look at. What's your hypothesis? What are you testing? What are you keeping the same and what are you changing? And if you don't like the outcome, then you gotta change something. And it can't just be things around you. It's typically gonna be something that you're doing internally. If everybody treats you bad, it's probably because you treat everybody bad. That's how I
Wow.
look at that.
What a great analogy.
You're
Sorry for
welcome.
those who don't like science and just had to listen to what Matt just spewed out there, but and
Sorry for the
for
flashbacks.
the record, I knew it was hypothesis, but I was unsure if that was the correct answer. That's why I got excited when that was the correct answer. So I knew,
All
but
right, my bad.
I hated science if I'm being real. So I
Sounds
didn't
okay.
know if there was the correct answer, but hypothesis was what I was gonna go with, and I know the word asshole.
Okay.
Uh, man, I missed this. I'm enjoying this conversation.
I appreciate you clearing that up for everybody.
Well, most certainly. My pleasure.
I do want to talk a little bit though about you said the video of the guy smacking up his older dad. I just think that it's sad that whole situation. One, you know, I feel very strongly, regardless of what your parents do to you. And you know what, my parents were great parents, so I might not be the best person to say it. But without your parents, there's no you. So there, there must be some really fucked up shit that happened that it gets to a level that way. So I'll throw that out there. But two, like that that never will never ever bring closure to either of them. To the son that was doing that, obviously not to the dad, right? The dad probably at that age, you probably already have been reflecting on your life. If you're older,
Yeah.
most people will be like, "Damn, I made a lot of fucking mistakes." I mean, you hear all the stories about dads who left, right? And then they're like, "Man, I wish I didn't." You hear stories like that all the time. Parents who weren't around in their kids' lives enough. Even the like parents that are somewhat around, people who are rich. You're like, I wasn't around enough when my kids were growing
Mhm.
up. You know what I mean? And but you hear that as they get older and they start reflecting. I was chasing the money instead of spending time with my family or whatever. So I'm sure the dad already feels like shit. And I wonder if something like that could have been resolved with a conversation. Like you said, we don't know the whole context of it,
Yeah.
but the son's not gonna. No one wins in a situation like that.
It's almost like combating negative with negative, right? Like
Yes.
your negative
Hmm.
reaction to what happened is not there's no resolution. And maybe he didn't want resolution. Like again, I don't know the dynamics of or the specifics of what that relationship looked like and why it was what it came to be. But I'll talk a little bit about my experience, which I'm pretty sure I said it on the show before as well. But everything that led up to me meeting my father for the first time, which was, not that long ago, I missed a lot of time with him. And I was excited. I didn't know really what I wanted to say. I just remember that day specifically because my dad was bullshitting so much that I was feeling that frustration and anger. Like, is he doing it again? Like, is he not gonna come through? Are we not gonna have the conversation and we're not gonna see each other type of thing? And the moment I saw him when I looked through that window and he was laughing and stuff with my sister, shout out to my sister Crystal. Um, it was like a moment of relief. And then, I went in there, we talked, we had dinner, and there's been multiple times when my dad was apologizing and he regrets a lot of decisions he made, which, excluded him from my life and my brother's life. So I know he had to sit with that. He told me there was many nights he sat with himself and was disappointed and missing the time. He don't dwell on it too much though. And I respect that because it's like, what do you get out of that, right? It's just the hurt and stuff. So
Right.
I think also me opening up to him, like, "Dad, that's the past. Like, we can't do nothing about that at this point. It's 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 what we can do now. How do we move forward and continue building our relationship and repairing it?" And it's been a blessing. So I
Hmm.
think if for those who may be going through something similar or may have the opportunity to go through something similar, is if you keep an open mind, something like Matt said, is you may realize that there might have been some circumstances that prevented your father or your mother to being a part of your life in the way that you thought that they should have been.
Right. Yeah. No, and I always appreciate when you share that story because number one, it just shows realness. Like we don't wanna be people that come up on a show behind a microphone to just spew a bunch of bullshit about things that we've never experienced,
Yeah.
right? And second is, again, reinforcing the message is that of what kind of person do you wanna be? Do you wanna let other people dictate how you act and how you move, the actions of others? Or do you wanna be your own person and say, "You know what? They did that, but this is who I am, and I'm gonna
Mhm.
choose to do the right thing, what I know to be
Mhm.
right. I'm gonna choose to show love even though people are showing hate." It's your choice. It really and it's not an easy choice. It never is an easy choice. But to your point, we always say, yeah, it's a hard decision in the moment, but you could sleep way better knowing that you did what you knew to be right, and that's that. And so I love
Mhm.
that you shared that. And I agree with you, man. If anybody's in a space like that, and I even encourage you, right? I know, like we always say, we're not bullshitting. Anybody can reach out at any time, at
I
any
just about to
time,
say that. I just
at
about to
any
say that.
time. So don't be scared, man. Don't be scared to reach out. We're not just guys that are behind the mic bullshitting.
Yeah. And I think another way that might help someone is to think about it like this. You know, there's plenty of people who prefer to be in your shoes in the sense of their father and mother might not be around, or they might not be on this earth anymore, where they don't have that opportunity to repair or have a conversation. So we talk about it, right? Sometimes you just gotta be happy and blessed that you have those opportunities. So do what you will with it, to each their own. But something to think about. Even this morning when I woke up, I definitely prayed and thank God for another day, another opportunity to be able to, talk to my daughter, hit up my mom.
Yep. A- Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. I mean, I think it's the perfect season to forgive. You don't gotta wait for nothing. That's one thing. And second is, I think, like you said, I love that you said like when you saw him, it was like a weight, right? Because I don't think people realize how heavy unforgiveness could be. And not saying that
Mm,
you had that, because you were obviously ready to have a conversation with him. But when you stay lashed onto something, it's not the only person that you're not forgiving that's holding on to the weight, is you too. Because every time you think about it, it makes you feel some kind of negative way. Or you could be having a great day and then something, whatever it is, right, slips into your mind and then boom, that thought. Or if it's a past relationship, a song that you guys used to share, or a place that you guys used to go to, or the activity you used to do together. And then that goes. And so forgiveness is going helps a lot of people, man. It would have helped in that situation that you was talking about between the dad and the son. That would have cleared up a lot of things. But also it helps you be more aware of what's happening in your own life with your own children or your own friends. Cause I'm telling you, we do a lot of things unconsciously, not knowing it. But we're just doing it because we're emulating what we saw when we were younger growing up. So
we
you
talk
gotta
a
be
lot about
actively
like
make the change.
we talk a lot about like cycles, right? Like the life cycles. Like my grandmother creating distance in relationships with my mom doing it with me, and just me wanting to break the cycle of making sure I don't do that with Noveline. I know that I have to be the change, right? That's why it was so important to me to get my daughter in the same room as my grandmother. And, I shout out to Nove. I told you this, I think, on a personal level, but shout out to Nove because she was open to it. And I appreciate her for that because she didn't have to be, right? She could have held on to that resentment of like, she didn't want to be a part of my life. And she did it. And it was a great moment to see and be a part of, right? His four generations all in one room and just
That's fire.
sharing a moment. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So
fire, man. No, it's a special moment. I mean, I was able to it's a crazy feeling because I was able to partake of that when I would go back home, when my grandmother was still around,
mhm.
and I had my kids, and it truly is something special.